Hey,
how are you?
How you doing, Justin?
Hanging in there. It's been a hectic couple days, but I'm hanging in. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been
That's good.
It's been a very hectic day as well. Very busy, but just hanging in there.
That's good, my friend. That's good.
All right, let me give you a proper introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's Choice Podcast here for episode 17. I'm here with the hardcore icon, former ECW World Champion, former 8-time hardcore champion, 2-time ECW Tag Team Champion. I mean, I can go on and on. Truly a legend, truly an honor to have you, Justin Credible. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here, man.
So what's the weather looking like in Waterbury? Because a lot of my peeps and audience know that's where I'm from too as well. Waterbury.
Oh wow! Oh, right on. It's cold, man. It's cold. Ooh. Surprisingly, yeah, it was windy and cold today, but hopefully it seems to be getting a little warmer. So spring's right around the corner.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. See, I lived there from time I was like 12. Well, born there, then lived there about 12 and a half. Then moved to North Carolina and been here.
Oh wow!
Since. So,
nice. Whereabouts in Waterbury did you live?
LHP, Long Hill Projects. Wyman Street. Where else I moved? I lived in Easton Avenue for a little bit. I was all over the place.
Nice, very cool.
So when we're gonna get started, let's start with your professional wrestling career, of course. So when did you know you wanted to be a professional wrestler?
I knew pretty early. What really captured my imagination as a kid, I was probably around 12 years old, funny enough, and I started watching the WWF, and it was when Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik for his first WWF title, and like the start of Hulkamania. That's when I kind of was like, wow, because I'd never seen stuff like that before, as a kid. And wrestling really started to become a big thing. So, from that moment on, I was hooked, watching the first WrestleMania and stuff like that, was just, I started, becoming obsessed with it,
That's awesome. And you went and trained with the Hearts in the Hearts dungeon in Canada. Well, you mostly trained with Lance Strom. What was that like?
It was rough. I mean, the training itself was rough, and I went there when I was 18. I graduated from Holy Cross High School, as a matter of fact. Cool. Up here in Waterbury, and so, I mean, I was a kid. I was working at Stop and Shop grocery stores, bagging groceries, saving money to go to the Hearts. And,
I miss Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
They don't have one down here in North Carolina.
Yeah, I know. But just, being, going from Waterbury, never really being anywhere at that time in my life by myself, nonetheless, traveling to Canada and all the way out, all the way to the western side of the world. It was scary, it was scary. First time away from my family, but it was cool. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, and I really, I had to pay my dues up there. They trained us really hard, worked us really hard, and but it was a great experience. I mean, at the end of the day, it helped make me the wrestler to this day that I am. I wouldn't have had the success that I had without that training.
As a wrestling fan, and many other fans can attest, we hear stories about the dungeon, how they stretch you out and make you through like 1,000 squats, air squats before you even start locking up.
Yep.
Exactly how it is.
Yeah, it's exactly how it is. And but it just, what that does is too, I know why they do it. At first you think, oh, they're just being jerks. They're just trying to be. No, it's not. What they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out who really wants it, because 12 people entered the camp when we started, and only 2 finished. Myself and this other kid, Brett Farrell, who still wrestles as well up in Toronto. So they do it to kind of weed people out, because back in the day, not everybody that went to wrestling school made it. It was still a lot of kayfabe. back then. They didn't want to smarten everybody up to the business. This is pre-internet and stuff like that. So they were still very picky and choosy on who they allowed on the other side of the curtain, as far as, outsiders. And if you were kind of, if you were serious about the business and if you treated it with respect. So they were, they didn't just let anybody back there. So I was very, very happy that, I stuck with it and, did the hard work.
So after that, you went on and you wrestled for a few indies like Rocky Pro Wrestling, and you went on to the WWF. How did that opportunity come for you?
I came from Canada. I had my first 10 matches out there. Out of those 10, one of them was Jericho and one of them was Lance Strom. Yeah. So I got to work with a lot of world-class talent. But then when I came back to Connecticut, again, I can't stress the importance so people could kind of understand. I didn't know anybody here, no promoters, no nothing. And this was pre-internet. So it's not like you can go on social media and kind of put yourself out there and try to find promoters that are running locally. I didn't know anybody. So I was getting frustrated that I wasn't working. So I took a chance and went to the old New Haven Coliseum for a WWE live event. Still WWF back then. And I just went there with my gear and went backstage and said, my name is PJ. I was trained by the Hearts, which helped, I think Brett and Owen were both on that show that night. And, I was like, if you ever need anybody, I'm here. And they were kind to me, let me stay and watch the show from the back. So at the end of the show, I went to say goodbye and thank you for your hospitality. And they said, well, if you ever want to do, extra work for us, like do some jobs for us, we're starting a new show in Manhattan called Monday Night Raw, and we could use guys to go down and work. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door.
Oh, that's a crazy just to think, because that would never fly nowadays, trying to go backstage, but that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you get to WWF and you start off as PJ Walker, right? And then can you explain the pitch of the Aldo Montoya character?
Well, Aldo was really, Vince hired me because I was Portuguese, but they were still kind of working ideas on what the Portuguese character Aldo would be. At first they mentioned, and they showed me a drawing of a soccer player, which they didn't do, obviously. And then the next one was Aldo. So, they really didn't pitch it to me. They just kind of said, this is what you're going to look like. And they really, believe it or not, didn't give me a lot of direction. I got my outfit like 2 hours before television. And that was it, man. This is the first time I'd ever put the costume on and the first time I ever wrestled under a mask. So it was all very crazy and intimidating and scary,
Is it true also that I heard that the Aldo mask or costume isn't what was drawn up, so you kind of just like, what the heck, but then had to go out there and perform?
Yeah, it was what it was drawn up. It just looked a lot cooler. When I saw it, it just looked better. I guess the girls, the way they did it was just, not as, because the guy they drew up looked like a warrior, almost like a Power Ranger, looked pretty badass. And this thing was kind of, the outfit itself was a bit flimsy. The character in the drawing had big Road Warrior style shoulder pads. These shoulder pads were cool, but they were kind of smaller and made out of foam and just didn't look like what I thought it was going to be. I was a bit disappointed.
And I heard you say in an interview before that you and Scott Hall and Xpac and Shawn Michaels were really close. How did that friendship start? And are you all still close to this day?
It just started with mostly Scott and I. Because when I started traveling and going on the road, I couldn't rent a car. And at the time, we were doing a lot of the smaller towns. We were still doing some high schools and college campuses and stuff. And, one time on my first road trip, as a matter of fact, I couldn't rent a car. I didn't know anybody in the WWF yet. And I couldn't get a ride to the building. I was at the airport and I drove with the agents, Tony Gurria and Chief Jay Strongbow. And Razor asked me when I got there, he goes, "Who are you traveling with?" And I said, "I came in with Tony Gurria and stuff." And he goes, "Bro, you're going to get so much heat traveling with the Office." He goes, "From now on, if I'm on the same shows, you're coming with me." And I was like, "Okay," it was cool. And then when Shawn and I, when Shawn was on those shows, I was just go with Scott, and that's when I got to meet up with Shawn and Shawn Michaels and Shawn Waltman and those guys.
Awesome. And are you guys still close? Because it's all documented, with them being, the clique and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do. Oh, go ahead.
No, I still talk to. I haven't talked to Shawn Michaels in a while, but I still talk to Waltman quite a bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So in 1997, you asked for your release from WWF at the time,
Yep.
but Vince McMahon said no, but then sent you to Jerry Lawler's Memphis territory,
right?
To learn how to become a heel. What was it like working in Memphis?
It was cool. It was definitely. I wasn't making any money down there, which was it was hard because I was paying for an apartment in Connecticut, paying for my car in Connecticut, and then I was down there. I also had to pay for housing and a rental car, so I was really broke, because we weren't making that much money in those days. So I was paying for two places, paying for two cars. But it was okay. I learned a little bit, not as much as I would have wanted to. It was kind of a waste of time, but it was cool. I met Rocky Maivia, The Rock, down there when he first came out of college and started doing wrestling. Dwayne was down there in USWA as well. Yeah. So, it was fun. I got to meet some cool people. But on the last week I was there, ECW was down there doing that angle with Jerry Lawler. And, I spoke to Chris Candido, who I was friends with. And he kind of convinced me to try ECW. And then Paul Hayman went to Vince and, got me released to him, and that's how it started.
Awesome. So what was your first thoughts of ECW? Because I know probably coming from, WWF and, even from the time the Hearts were, strictly wrestling technical, and all this barbed wire, fire, tables and stuff. What concern you a little bit, or was you like, eh?
I was concerned. Yeah, I was nervous, to be honest with you. I'd be lying if I didn't. But I quickly learned that it was, really no different than what I did. So it was a good experience. But yeah, at first I was really scared. I was apprehensive, to say the least,
And what was Paul Hayman like back then?
He was great, man. He was very charismatic. Really, he gets a lot of credit for being a great booker, which he was. But he was more of in my opinion, he was a great motivator. Like, he made you believe in yourself, especially in ECW, because, ECW was growing so much. Paul still couldn't get a lot of the big names he wanted to because he couldn't necessarily afford them. WCW was paying huge contracts, and the Monday Night Wars were starting. So, it was a little more challenging. So he had to take what he could. So what he would do is he would just, make you believe in yourself to a point where he just gave you the confidence, and he believed in you, which in turn would help your performances. Like, he'd talk you up and give you these speeches that really made your confidence grow. And just his belief in his kind of making you, opening things up for you to succeed, like making it easier for you to succeed, just made him like really cool and inspiring. He's really, really cool to work for.
Awesome. Are you guys keep in touch nowadays?
I haven't talked to him in a while since, there's no heat or anything, but, since probably Vince's ECW, we haven't spoken.
Okay. So what was your thoughts on the Impact Players tag team, and what was it like winning the ECW tag titles?
I loved it. Lance was really one of the first people I'd met in pro wrestling. So, it was just a natural fit. We were so comfortable with each other. We knew each other very well. And what I think made it work for me, at least, I think for us as well, I think he feels the same way, is we were polar opposites in a lot of ways. Although he taught me how to work the style that the Hearts were teaching. He was more technical. I turned out to become more of a brawler. He wore tights. I wore the jean shorts and the t-shirts and stuff. I had more of an attitude, where he was more serious. And, but then like mixing it together just made it for a perfect, like, you know what I mean? A perfect little,
Yeah.
you know, what he wasn't, I was, and what I was, he wasn't. So it kind of just like yin and yang sort of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And winning the belts, winning the tag belts, I don't really even remember them. Remember winning them. I just remember those are it was the first title I ever won. And, just remember it being you know, a really good time for me in my career. You know, it's like almost like you bring the belts home and you're like, this is really cool. You know, it's kind of a mark out moment.
Mm-hmm. So one of your biggest moments in your career was winning the ECW World Championship from Tommy
Yes.
Dreamer.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was. It's kind of when you kind of realize that you've arrived at a certain level. I didn't find out till about 2 hours before I was supposed to go on.
Mm-hmm.
I think the show was either in intermission or close to intermission, and in the backstage area, they just put your name on a piece of paper and they tape it to the wall, you know, and Paul will write in pencil, you know, who's wrestling who, and my name wasn't on there. And Lance and I were still tag champions. So I was like, maybe, you know, we got the day off or we just have promos, whatever, you know, no big deal. So I was just watching the show and then Paul's like, get dressed. And, you know, then he let me know and I was like, wow, okay. You know, I wasn't expecting that for sure. So, it was really cool because, you know, even though wrestling is obviously a work and you're not really winning anything,
Mm-hmm.
it does mean, though, that, you know, the promoter and the company believe in you enough to put you in the top spot, meaning you're going to main event pay-per-views. You're going to be on television representing the product and on a global scale, really, because we were growing so much, getting ready to move to TNN, or if not already on TNN. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it was just a really, really cool experience. And it's like, I finally made it. I mean, I would have never thought when I got into this business that I would ever be a world champion. You know, because there were only 3 world champions. There was WCW, ECW, and the WWE, of course. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was one of the 3 world champions in this continent and country. So it was quite humbling.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it had to be a great time too because, you know, over there in WCW and WF, you know, your buddies Scott and Kevin were running things WCW, Shawn was running things in WF, then you running things ECW. So
it was crazy, really cool. Right? Yeah, it was actually really crazy. So it was a wonderful time, and I wish it would have lasted. I wish, you know, WCW wouldn't have gone out of business, and I wish ECW wouldn't have gone out of business. You know, maybe things would have been different for all of us. You know.
And speaking of that, of ECW going out of business, you wrestled on its last show on January 13th, 2001. You faced Sandman, which was, of course, the final match. Did you guys know it was going to be the final match before going on the show? Or?
We did. Yeah, we did. I mean, we weren't really told per se, but everybody knew, you know, even though Paul was telling us there was going to be, you know, they were going to be looking for, you know, TV and just a bunch of bullshit. We knew. We all knew, because after the match, we had celebrated inside the ring with the whole locker room, kind of to say goodbye to the company. So, we knew. We knew. Yeah.
Writing was on the wall that bad.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. Yeah.
So you went back to WWF in February 2001 as part of X Factor with Albert.
Yep.
And Xpac. I said, what was the biggest, or I'm sorry, what was it like being back with WWF after 5 years away?
It was fun. I mean, it was great. They had changed so much. They were like coming out of the Attitude Era. I mean, still kind of in it. It was, you know, business was huge. When I had left, they were actually not doing very well. You know, house shows were down, business was down. That's when they had all those crappy gimmicks, like, you know, Duke Droese and, you know, all those bad gimmicks. And Aldo was one of them, you know. And so coming back and just seeing, like, you know, when I left, Stone Cold was just starting to kick off, and now The Rock is blown up, and Austin is the biggest star in the world, and everybody's just doing such great business. It was electrifying. It was really cool, you know.
Awesome. And I really liked it, that X Factor tag team, and I loved your theme too, because it threw you off a little bit. But I felt like, because you guys had some great matches with the Hardy Boys, and I really thought they broke you guys up way too soon to put you in the Alliance faction.
Yeah, and that sucked because I didn't want it. I mean, we were supposed to get the tag titles.
Really?
At one point, yeah. And you know, when they did the the buyout of WCW. It just, you know, I knew what was going to happen, and it was like, you know, they broke us up prematurely, and then being stuck in the Alliance was just, you know, they wasted so many guys, you know, unfortunately. But there was such an influx of, all of a sudden, you got to understand, there were three main companies in the beginning of 2001. And in a couple of months, there was probably 300 jobs available full-time in pro wrestling. Now there's only, you know, half of those jobs went away, and everybody's trying to compete for a roster spot in the WWF. I was just lucky to have a spot, you know, and it was just a very, very hard time for the boys. And well, the boys, the girls, you know, everybody that's in the business, it was just, you know, really hard for everyone. You know, because we lost two companies, and a lot of guys didn't make the cut, you know, and it was a shame. But we also had too many guys on the roster as well. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that Alliance ain't really, Angle could have really taken off, I think, if they would have probably waited to get some of the bigger names and stuff.
Right. And I even further on that, I agree 100% with you. And I think if they would have waited, or not waited, if they would have kept WCW separate and ECW separate, like it wasn't for real, like all three promotions kind of you know, fighting to get to a Super Bowl of wrestling sort of a thing, like a three-way angle, instead of just the Alliance against WWE. I thought that was that watered it down a bit. Even though it was a big angle and made a lot of money, I think it would have been even better if it was just more of an organic, natural progression of what the fans would have wanted to see, because they would have wanted to see more of the ECW stuff and more of the, you know, the bigger names from WCW, like you said, you know.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with that Alliance thing, because I just felt like they focused a lot on WCW guys, but a lot of people didn't really know too well, especially from WWF fans. And WCW, you guys were really big, especially, you know, from Connecticut. But it's like you guys were like on the back burner, except for I think they pushed Van Damme.
Van Damme, and that was it. Yeah, it was like the Steve Austin show, you know.
So your last three matches in WWE in 03 was against Sean O Haire, Batista, and Test before being released. And I've heard all three of them could work pretty stiff or snug. Is that true?
Test, yes. O'Haire, yes. Batista, no. He was a pussycat. I loved working with Dave. Yeah, Big Dave and I got along really well. We had really good matches. I liked working with Dave. He was really good. He was green, but he was good. He showed a lot of potential right off. That was his debut match, as a matter of fact, on Raw.
Yep.
Yeah. So I liked working with Dave.
You said O'Haire and Test were definitely.
Test, definitely, big time. Hated working with that dude. Nice guy, but just Jesus, begging you to lighten up a little bit.
Oh yeah, there's some stories going around the internet where they're like, man, Test would not let up. He was just boom, boom, boom.
It was so big too. Like, you didn't realize how big you are, and you don't need to like kill people. You know what I mean? But whatever, man.
So after your release, you wrestled for TNA and feuded with longtime ECW rival Jerry Lynn. What was that like, wrestling with Jerry Lynn again?
It was really cool. You know, we kind of picked up where we left off. We in that feud, we had some really, really good matches. I think we had I think it was a last man standing match, if I'm not mistaken. Either that or a chain match. But we had one of each, and those were really, really good matches. I loved working with Jerry. He was probably the guy that I had the best matches with. So it was fun. It was just, unfortunately, TNA wasn't paying anything. You know what I mean? It was just not a place to make money. You know, I mean, it was cool, but it was not a lot of money.
I was going to ask you, what was TNA like back then? Was Dixie in charge by that time?
Yes, yeah. Dixie was in charge. Yep.
It was still kind of rocky, because people say good things about Dixie, but then some say bad things. Can you talk a little bit about Dixie?
She was just, she loved wrestling, but she was a bit of a mark as far as like, who she wanted and, sometimes overpaying for talent. That was more so in the like 08, 09 era when she brought in Hulk and all those guys or whatever that year was. Mm-hmm. She just spent a ton of money on unnecessary talent that wasn't really getting the job done. And I think once they figured out that we could just schmooze Dixie and, get her to pay us, a ton of money, they can. Well, actually, I'm misinforming you. When I was there for that feud with Jarrett was still running it. Oh, so I worked with Dixie later on in like 2009, and
for that hardcore justice, right?
Yes, gotcha. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. What was Jarrett like? Because I remember Bam Bam's talking about him, say he'll try to pay you with a hot dog and a Coke and go about your day.
Yeah, I really didn't deal with him very much, to be honest. Never really ran into him.
All right. So can you speak about your time in Wrestling Society X and what all went down with that?
I was only there for one show. I was there to tape the pilot episode. And I mean, it was well organized. It was for MTV, and the production people from XPW actually were running it. So I mean, it seemed well organized, and it sort of had the vision like of a Lucha Underground before. It's kind of ahead of its time a bit. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. They just had me on, like I said, they had me on the pilot episode, and I knew I didn't come back for the rest of the season, which is a shame. But I wish it would have been picked up because at the time wrestling kind of needed another, something else on TV because it would have been good for the business. But yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome because I remember seeing you there for the pilot episode. Yep. I remember seeing Matt Seidel was there. And,
yep, that's right.
Vampiro, I think, and I think Xpac too. So
yeah, Pac was there.
They had some people, and I was just like, it just ended so quickly. I was like, dang.
Yeah, and the ratings weren't bad either. I don't know what that was more of an MTV executive decision than I think anything with the wrestling people.
Okay. So then you returned to WWE for ECW One Night Stand, which some fans call one of the best pay-per-views of all time, especially the first one. What was that experience and atmosphere like? Because just watching on pay-per-view, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly one of the best pay-per-views ever. It was just amazing to come back after 4 years or something like that to the Hammerstein Ballroom and the atmosphere. It was almost like we'd never gone away, and fans really wanted us back at that time. And it was really initially supposed to be for one show. But from the success and the money it made on pay-per-view, from what I understand, it was one of the highest pay-per-views they'd had besides WrestleManias and like Royal Rumbles. So it made them a lot of money. They made a lot of money on the house, and which gave Vince the idea to bring it back as a whole in 2006.
Mm-hmm. And that didn't really get received so well from fans. But I do remember you wrestling CM Punk on his first debut match. Now, Punk kind of has a reputation of either being an easygoing person or really hard to work with. What was your experience with him?
Oh, he was great. Him and I had a really good match, as a matter of fact, and he was so happy with the way the debut went. He actually was crying, like choked up. He was very emotional. So my dealings with Punk, and actually we had a rematch of that first match too on the ECW show for Vince. Yeah, he was great. I mean, the Punk I got was great. I couldn't say a bad word about him, but I'd heard similar things too. Mm-hmm. But yeah. No, but with me, he was fine.
Awesome. That's good. You got the good Punk.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever wrestled anyone that didn't want to put you over, which is extremely difficult to work with, ever?
Not really. Not really. The one time, which I found kind of weird, and I never had problems with them before, was one time Xpac and I were going over on the APA, And I had worked with Bradshaw a million times, literally at house shows, and even back when he was Justin Hawk Bradshaw and I was Aldo, and we always had good matches, worked very good together. And for some reason, we wrestled in Baltimore on SmackDown, and him and Ron beat the hell out of us for no reason, and because I think it was they weren't happy that they had to put us over. I mean, because
they did that with who was a Public Enemy before too, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough that when I walked to the locker room, Kid was busted up in the mouth and in the nose. He's bleeding, and Ron like dropped me on my head, and Taker's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. No problem." I didn't sell it, but yeah, it's one of those things.
It's funny you bring up Taker because you actually go way back with Taker. I even heard you were helping him train and get ready for the Faker Taker match that he had.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Undertaker?
Oh, he's a great dude. I go back with him from the very beginning, from my beginning in '93. So Mark and I have always been good, always gotten along.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So who was one of the best guys that you work with and that you love working ring? Since about the stiffest ones or the ones.
Sure. Loved working with the Hardys, especially Matt. Matt and I had a lot of good matches. Who else? I mean, obviously, all the guys from ECW I loved working with. Loved working with Sabu. Loved working with Shane Douglas. Let me see. Who do I like working with in the WWE? Like I said, I loved working with Batista, which kind of surprised me. Stone Cold and I actually had a bunch of good house show matches right before he turned babyface, right around the time where he wrestled Jake Roberts at the famous King of the Ring 316 promo. I worked with him a lot right before that. I loved working with him. So, those are my guys right there.
Awesome. Great names right there.
Yeah, right. I was blessed, dude. I got to work with a lot of legends. I mean, I worked with Taker before. I worked with Mr. Perfect. Worked with Razor. Worked with Razor actually in ECW, which a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. When I was world champion, he came in and wanted to work with me. Which was cool. Got to work for a match with Shawn Michaels as Aldo when he was IC champ, which was cool. I mean, I got to work with everybody. The only guy I never worked with was Flair that I wanted to work with. Man. Yeah, that's it.
It's funny because you mentioned Flair because I remember hearing your interviews before where you said sometimes you will call your matches, you will say, "Let's do the Flair Steamboat thing." It's a shame that you guys never got to wrestle.
I know. Well, maybe another life.
Maybe. You also work with ICP, the Insane Clown Posse, before.
Yeah.
For their promotion, the JWC. How was it working with them?
It was fun. It was fun. Unorganized a bit. They'd always have their festivals like in the middle of nowhere. So those just horrible locker rooms and just waiting all day to wrestle. But I did get to wrestle Muda. The Great Muda for them. So that was fun.
Awesome.
That was fun.
I seen they got on YouTube the match you had with Vader too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. That was right before he passed away, not too long ago, at least. Yeah.
So you had a retirement match too with Tommy Dreamer in 2015. What made you believe that was it?
When you're in this business, it's weird. It's hard to, because the business after a while just wasn't paying the bills, and it makes it really hard to get a job and to still wrestle, because people always ask you questions and you're like, all of a sudden, why is Justin Credible working like a regular job? So it's really hard to do both, especially if you're recognizable. And I certainly am in this area. So I always had a difficulty with that, and then shit gets out, it's on the internet and it's embarrassing and people will call you at work, they'll prank you and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, my career's pretty much coming to an end. Maybe I will call it a day here and just move forward, kind of to start on a new path. And, the minute you do that, all of a sudden something pops up and you're like, Well, I was retired for a year, but somebody offered you some money, so let's go and rest. It's you know what? It's like Terry Funk's retired a million times. I'll probably die in the ring or something like that. You'll know. Once a wrestler, always a wrestler. And as long, I'm still healthy. I'm 47.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably wrestle for as long as I can. Unfortunately,
I was gonna say the time only lasted about a year because then you wrestled for CZW and ECW.
Yep.
What was it like coming back after a 1 year off though? Was it like first day taking bumps again?
It wasn't bad. Not too bad. Can't complain. It's probably good I took a year off.
All right. And I love your YouTube channel, by the way, the wrestling.
Oh, thank you.
Pro Wrestling 101. You drop so much knowledge to inspiring wrestlers who's looking to get into the business. But have you ever thought maybe one day to be like a trainer, like for maybe like an NXT, or if it was ever even offered, or any other organization?
I would love to do that. Right now, unfortunately, it hasn't presented itself, but I would certainly love to do that. Absolutely. I would love to do that for AEW, but I don't think I think they actually have their, Cody has QT Marshall down there. So they have their own thing. And I don't know if I'd want to move to Tampa to go be part of the NXT thing because, my kids are all up here and, my oldest is in college. So we're pretty well based in this area. So it'd be rough. Mm-hmm. But never say never. If they would have me, I would certainly consider it.
True, because I learned a lot from watching it. From the locker room etiquette, from putting guys, over. It was great. So
a lot of people like those, and we actually have a podcast version of that up now. Actually, on Vince Russo's The Brand, which is free, by the way. But we have a podcast version of those up as well.
Awesome. That was asking my next question. I was going to say, you have a podcast, we review AEW weekly on Vince Russo's Brand. What's it like working with Vince? Because he's literally the most controversial or one of the most controversial figures in wrestling business. But personally, I just think it's like Kevin Nash said, he's just misunderstood. What's it like for you?
He is, man. I didn't know Vince that well. He hit me up out of the blue when AEW started, and I've literally reviewed every AEW Dynamite. And he is one of the kindest, most gentlest people. He's so good to me. Pays me well to do the podcast. And just always there as a friend. And I think people just love to, love to hate him for, just because he booked some bad wrestling in WCW or in TNA doesn't make him a bad person. And I just think that a lot of times people just love to mess with it. You know what I mean? It's like they just they're still talking about stuff that happened 20 years ago. So it's like, for me, my experience is he's a wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. I love him.
Awesome. Yeah, because I just watched his interview not too long with Chris Van Vliet, and shout you Chris Van Vliet when you see this great guy. He said you're a great guy too.
Right on. Nice.
And I literally don't understand the hate on him because like he goes in details of like why he booked things this way and trying to pop ratings, but people want to say he killed WCW or he was responsible for killing Owen, and it's like it's just so unfair,
Yeah, it's very unfair, and a lot of people talk when they don't know. And after talking to him and working with him, reviewing the show, I could see why he thinks the way he does and why he does things the way he does. Because he books, he tried to book wrestling. He doesn't book anymore, obviously, but he tried to book wrestling like a television show with different, different ideas and stuff. And that's it. It's. I don't know. I never booked a show, so I couldn't tell you. But a lot of his stuff made sense, at least when he communicated them to me about like how AEW was not at times booking to increase ratings and such. So I and he's admitted to dropping the ball at certain times, of course, with certain angles. But only human.
That's true.
And it is only wrestling. I don't know why people take it so personal.
I have no idea. And I grew up a wrestling fan my whole life, and I love it and respect and will never disrespect wrestlers or the business. But some people are just over the top. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, whatever. You know how that.
So you've reviewed every episode of Dynamite since it's really existed. What do you feel they're strongest at, and what do you feel they need to improve on the most?
I think their strongest. I mean, they have good wrestling. I think their main event programs are very good. They have a lot of talented wrestlers. I love their broadcast as far as being live on TNT. It gives it an exciting feel. It almost reminds me of Nitro. It just, it's so much. It's so different than WWE, which excites me. What I don't like is the matches are a bit too long for me. And a lot of times, they're so predictable. Like they'll give you, somebody that's, is going to win against a Joey Janela. And that's fine. But like, I don't want to go 16 minutes and know exactly who's going to go over. Why do you have to go 16 minutes and then give me the finish that I'm expecting anyways? And they do that all the time. Like I wouldn't mind it if, of course, who's going to go over at times, but, don't drag it out to a 16, 17 minute segment and then give me the finish anyways that we all expect. That's a bit frustrating. And I think they need to, just kind of, one thing I don't like that they do is, you'll see someone like a Scorpio Sky. And then, he's looking good, looks like he's going to be a contender and make a run for it. Then you don't see him on Dynamite for 3 weeks. Yeah. I think they need to take their stars and they need to feature them on every episode to continuously build them and the storylines. So fans don't have to think so hard. It's like sometimes like we will see somebody and then they disappear and then they bring them back and we're supposed to remember all these people. Like there's like Private Party. Yeah. Like they just disappear, and so many other Top Flight, they just disappear. And they make the audience sometimes work too hard to remember these things. They should do like WWE does, get your core guys and keep them going, make them stars. You know what I mean?
True. I was going to ask, do you keep up with WWE as much or not really?
Not really. No, not really. Nope. One show a week's enough. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. If there was something, that I would like to see, I would watch. Unfortunately, just nobody's really exciting me at the time. And it's not because they're not good. They're all the men and women are very good. Just their storylines just right now are nothing's, I don't know, nothing's really hitting me.
Same. Shout out to Solid Monster because he sits through like the AEW, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and all. Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but he keeps me updated because I don't watch all of it.
It's hard. It's hard. It is very hard. It is definitely.
So, Justin, one thing that I love about my show is that I try to keep it as positive as possible, and I love quotes or phrases and stuff. So, what's a quote that you really love during either the good times or bad times?
No amount of money could ever buy a second of time.
Like that.
Yes.
Say that one more time for me.
No amount of money could ever buy a second of time. Basically, use your time, enjoy your time, because you can never buy it, no matter how rich you are.
Amen on that. So for all my I call my audience my peeps, but for all my peeps, where can they find you or contact you at, Justin?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Just follow me on Twitter at PJ Polacco. Same on Instagram at PJ Polacco. And of course, ProWrestlingTees.com/JustinCredible. I have like 20 shirts, both ECW style and old school and new school. So if you're into that, check it out. ProWrestlingTees.com/JustinCredible. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you for the interview, Justin. I truly appreciate it. And good luck, with podcasting and hopefully, wrestling again once everything opens up again from the pandemic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
No problem. Thank you, Justin.
Awesome. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.